Well, Donald Trump may not know how to keep algae out of his much ballyhooed renovation of the reflecting pool or negotiate a lasting peace deal with Iran, or for that matter, lower prices for American families. One thing he does know how to do rather expertly is milk every last dime from the presidency and then some. A disclosure form filed last night shows that Donald Trump raked in billions in the first year of his presidency alone. The New York Times summarizes the report this way, quote, Trump reaped a stunning windfall in his first year back in the White House, including about $1.4 billion from his family's cryptocurrency businesses, according to a new filing. All told, the president pulled in at least $2.2 billion, a figure that includes other parts of his vast holdings, such as his real estate assets. That compares to a minimum of $622 million his enterprises pulled in for all of 2024 before returning to the presidency. The president's family business, the Trump Org, has also capitalized on Trump's popularity in certain parts of the world, licensing the Trump name to properties in countries that are crucial to U.S. foreign policy interests, including Saudi Arabia and Qatar. It is not an exaggeration to say that Donald Trump has profited off the presidency in a way that is completely without precedent in the entire history of the United States of America. On that, the New York Times writes this, quote, generally throughout history, American presidents have taken actions to try to separate themselves from corporate entanglements that might create conflicts. Quote, public office, if anything, was a source of debt, not a source of revenue, said one historian. Trump and his family have done the opposite, creating new business ventures that are profiting from actions Trump has taken since returning to the White House, something that the Trump family has done without obfuscation or shame. In an interview with the New York Times shortly before his father took office, Eric Trump, whose own wealth has gone up tenfold, defended the Trump family profiteering when he told the New York Times this, quote, the first term, we did everything imaginable to avoid any appearance of impropriety. And frankly, we got crushed anyway, Eric Trump said, arguing that the presidency had cost his father, quote, an absolute fortune. He added this, quote, we can't just sit out in perpetuity, and I won't. Donald Trump, for one, appears to find nothing wrong with this self-dealing and enriching himself and compromising ethically. He made a flyover of the new jet gifted to him by the government of Qatar, a centerpiece of the nation's celebrations for the 4th of July. Trump said this when asked about his record profits by journalists. Watch.
To critics who say you're profiting off the presidency, Mr.
Well, you know why I'm profiting? Because the stock market's going up. Everybody's profiting. If you have a 401k, how's your 401k done? It's about up 85%. Thank you, President Trump. So we're all profiting. I'm profiting because I have a lot of money and a lot of cash, and I give it to institutions. I don't know if they know what they're doing or not, but they buy a vast array of things.
To be clear, most of his profits that make up that $2 billion with a B come from the crypto investments. But that interview took place, you can't make this stuff up, that interview took place standing in front of the Qatari jet. The Trump family's commitment to self-enrichment and grift, reaching new levels so extreme they rewrite the history of the American presidency, is where we begin today. Senior White House reporter Vaughn Hilliard is back, and we are so happy, my friend, to see you. Also joining us, the founder of the Public Integrity Project and former special counsel in the Justice Department, Brendan Ballou, is here, and Media Matters for America President Angelo Carusone joins us as well. Vaughn, it's so nice to have you back, and it's so nice to have your reporting back. I know you've been digging into the crypto piece here. Tell us what you've learned.
We knew, I actually had a baby, Nicole, and 3 months ago, right before I left, I knew that we'd be getting these financial disclosures, because what we kept saying about the crypto industry is that we knew that Donald Trump had made hundreds of millions of dollars, but it was too difficult to know how many hundreds of millions of dollars. So the fact that we are at $1.4 billion is astronomical, but also not surprising. The fact is, we don't know where that money has come from. How many foreign countries, how many foreign entities? The idea of the crypto industry is that there is a secret nature to it. The fact is that Donald Trump has also actively used the executive branch to wipe away a lot of the enforcement. The cops on the beat in terms of the SEC. He replaced Gary Gensler upon taking office. He was the SEC chair, who is much more favorable towards scrutinizing the crypto industry and the crypto markets. At the DOJ, he completely got rid of the crypto task force that was set inside of the Department of Justice to go and look at potential crypto financial crimes. And all of this is at a time where I think you don't need to know much about meme coins or stable coins or the different exchanges that he is essentially invested into. But what folks should know is that among all of these coins, every time there is simply a transaction, it doesn't matter if the price goes up or down, Donald Trump and his family, they make money. They make a fee off of every single transaction. And that is why we knew that in the lead up to his inauguration in 2025, that he was on the cusp of raking in hundreds of millions of dollars. 1.4 billion in just 2025 alone suggests that the family has understood, Nicole, that this is a money-making venture, whether the president wants to take any responsibility for it or not.
Let me just widen the aperture for a second. Before we dig into just how much and how he profits over crypto, I mean, just level set on what is normal. And don't even do normal. Do like Trump last time and Pence last time.
You mean the fact is that we had a conversation during the 2016 transition about Donald Trump divesting from his company? That is a decade ago, the conflict of interest and ethics conversation, Nicole, that we were having. And the fact is that Donald Trump, he talked about putting his money into a blind trust, right? He took his name off the Trump Organization. He put Don Jr. and Eric in charge. There was at least some sort of cover or attempt, perhaps you could, if you want to give it to him, to separate himself from his family businesses. But that's not what we're looking at this time around. And the folks around him, I think it's important to note, Nicole, is that they knew coming into the second term that there would be essentially no restrictions. There was this guy named Justin Sun, who the Biden administration, the SEC, actually filed a lawsuit against for fraud, for crypto fraud. And as soon as Donald Trump won in 2024, over the next 2 months, he gave $75 million to the crypto firm World Liberty Financial that Donald Trump and his family had set up just a couple of weeks before the 2024 election. And after giving them that $75 million, well, Donald Trump's SEC, they dropped the charges against Justin Sun. And then mere months later, over in the Middle East, who was on stage with Eric Trump? It was Justin Sun himself. And so I think in 2025, we looked at the beginning of a Trump administration over 4 years that is not have much interest at all in adhering to any conflicts of interest or standards or norms that other presidents have followed when it comes to divesting from their companies.
It is, I mean, gluttony is the only word I can think of to describe the amounts of money they're gobbling up. Brendan Ballou, just take a stab at putting this into context in terms of the brazenness. It is sort of a hallmark, and we cover the annihilation of rule of law largely in the context of Trump turning DOJ against career public servants, people like yourself, and using it to defend and protect his allies, people like the January 6th insurrectionists. But the annihilation of the rule of law in a more invisible way is to protect him from financial schemes that at best are massive conflicts of interest. Explain what you see here.
Yeah, and we're talking about, how unprecedented this is. I think it's so unprecedented that our laws don't really contemplate a level of corruption at the presidential level like this. And so we really have to develop laws around unjust enrichment, civil RICO, and so forth in order to be able to attack some of this stuff. I will say, when we're talking about the brazenness here, one thing that I think is really important to understand is that not only is Donald Trump getting extremely rich, he's affecting policy because of those riches. So, you think about, you showed the picture of the new Qatari gifted jet that he received that's now Air Force One. Well, shortly after he received that gift, he made a unilateral security guarantee to Qatar's geography. So it's entirely possible that American soldiers might fight and die in defense of a country that has gotten an enormous benefit shortly after giving a private jet to the president. Similarly, the UAE, to Vaughn's point about so much of this money coming from crypto, invested $500 million in Trump's crypto business, a business that, as far as I can tell, provides no value whatsoever. But after investing $500 million, Donald Trump approved the sale of 35,000 extremely rare, extremely expensive AI chips. So if you're wondering why technology and microchip and computers in the United States, the cost is going up, in part, potentially, you can thank this investment from the UAE and what the president received. So I think it's, so unprecedented to such an extent that really our legal infrastructure didn't even think that this could occur.